Aside from talking about his big assets and being the court jester, what purpose does The Miz serve? Now, I want to be clear, I have been a fan of his since 2009, but it's high time to take a step back and see if his career is awesome or not.
I got this.
Get comfortable, grab a coffee, and let's talk about it together.
You are on the Wrestling Paradise.
It's time for the review of The Miz. Let's go.
This is exactly what we wanted.
So you will have understood. At the core, I am a big fan of The Miz. I want to make it clear. Let's be perfectly clear about this. It is not at all a Pro Bowl global drop on The Miz. Far from it. In fact, quite the opposite. I have to tell you that since 2009, which is almost at the beginning of his journey in the main roster, even though he had actually been there for several years, it was really from that point that The Miz started to explode. I became a fan of him for many reasons. Already, I find that he had a rare eloquence on the mic, especially among the wrestlers of his generation. By the way, do you agree that The Miz is perhaps among the wrestlers who rose to prominence around the same time as him? Or at least who arrived in the main roster during his era? Don't you also think that he might be, if not the most talented on the mic? Because I also think of CM Punk, for example. At least we can really consider him to be in the top 3 best on the mic. Of his age, let's say. And that's one of the things I loved about him. Just like his personality, of course, his heel character. I take this opportunity to say that he's shown in that role that he has always been better as a heel in his career, and that being a babyface has never really suited him. And so, I loved him for his character. I found him classy. Simply put, he was inspiring. It was truly a source of inspiration to see a young man, let's say, well-dressed, speaking well, being eloquent, and succeeding as well. Because The Miz is also someone, and that's what made him very inspiring since 2009, someone who, at the beginning we know, came from the world of reality television, even though he was still a wrestling fan as a kid. But the fact that he came from that universe almost ostracized him. A word I rarely use, by the way, ostracized. But it's the case to say it. Basically, The Miz who was looked down upon because of that, who didn't come from the independent circuit like others, or who hadn't been trained the hard way, let's say, as is preferred in old school wrestling in any case, and who had a lot of difficulty even getting accepted. We know, so we are not here to talk about that, but we know that he has been involved in incidents and that he has been bullied. Basically, he was a victim of hazing, more or less, and it was very hard for him to find his place in the WWE locker room. But he eventually succeeded, and that's a beautiful story. He is someone who knows how to shut people up. He managed to shut some mouths, so to speak, because initially, people mocked him, rejected him, and did not believe in him. But against all odds, he reached the top of WWE on November 23rd, 2010, by making his famous cash-in of the Money in the Bank briefcase on Randy Orton, and becoming champion. What was for him the ultimate revenge? What an achievement! What success for him! What a source of inspiration after being mocked when we saw The Miz, even around 2008. He was still far from it, of what he will succeed in becoming in the next 1.5 to 2 years. He was very often ridiculous. I remember he was very often wearing a hat. He had a lot of accessories everywhere, on his arms, on his legs. In the end, it seemed like nothing. It was clearly a desperate attempt to express personality at all costs, and, ultimately, to mask, to hide the body, to hide the head. In short, it led to nothing, The Miz in 2008. But he made a phenomenal step up, as they say. He has really progressed, including himself, by working very hard. It's about effort, a lot of effort. He was telling someone, explaining that, in response to the other person who was saying to him, "But you, The Miz, you know how to speak, you're naturally eloquent, you're charismatic, you're good on the mic naturally." But The Miz said, "Not at all, not at all." And this is something we can only acknowledge about The Miz when we learn that he has really worked very hard. Basically, he said that over all those years, the formative years, including around 2008, he spent hours and hours and hours in his car rides going from hot place to hot place. In front of his mirror in the morning, basically. Whenever he had the chance and wasn't in public, let's say, he was constantly looking to cut promos. And he even said that he sometimes did promos by himself, where he explained why a certain bottle of shampoo, for example, was better than this one. Basically, what we understand, Traverseur, is that he took any subject that came his way, so to speak, to try to make a promo out of it and progress. And what admiration one can have for that, to work so hard, including when there are no cameras, when no one is watching us, when we are really in the shadows, so to speak, having worked hard and reached where he is. Total respect for that. Total respect. A great source of inspiration. Let's not forget that he also married Maryse, a beautiful diva, and all of this is also part of his very inspiring journey. But from the moment he reached his peak, let's say, of this rise to power, which is, let's consider it WrestleMania 27, to be in the main event of WrestleMania, nonetheless. Something that CM Punk had, at that time, never done. And this was something that frustrated CM Punk a lot otherwise. Anyway, we're not here to talk about him, but it was worth stunning him. The Miz had headlined WrestleMania against John Cena. Well, let's be honest. In reality, he was somewhat of a background character. A secondary character in the real rivalry that was unfolding between John Cena and The Rock, who was the host of that WrestleMania. And it's true that having Cena against The Miz, in terms of star power and flashy matchups, isn't exactly amazing, right? We have to be realistic. But on the other hand, total respect for The Miz for reaching such heights. But well, after that, it's a bit of a big downfall for The Miz. He still had a role in this feud between The Rock and John Cena, as they faced off in a tag team match with R-Truth against John Cena and The Rock a few months later at Survivor Series. Let's say that this might be among the last very strong moments of his time during that period, before truly experiencing the long desert crossing. Really, a downfall where he was completely in the mid-card, so in the middle of the card, let's say in the great anonymity of the mid-card, for years, literally years. He even let his hair grow out. Well, he was changing his look, experimenting a bit in a way. I remember well. One thing that had the merit of being funny during his whole dry spell, let's say, is that he had a partnership with Sandow, and they formed the team Mizdow. And what was especially funny was that you had Sandow, who was imitating who was doing a mimicry of really what he was able to do sometimes with The Miz was truly impressive. And it was funny. It was a combination, but well, it was much more comedy than anything else. Nothing too serious. And precisely, it is also from there, more or less, that The Miz got a bit of this label as the court jester. And when I say court jester, it's not at all an insult or anything like that, of course. It's simply to say that he was there to entertain the crowd, nothing more, nothing less. But, fortunately, in 2016, that changed. That's why it's still complicated to assess The Miz's career, because he has had periods that are like roller coasters, times when he was very, very high, when he was part of one of the biggest names in WWE, where he was in the main events, where he was important, where he was mega credible, but not over the top. What I mean is that he was among those who were in the main events of the shows, who had enough legitimacy to face a John Cena at WrestleMania, for example. And in 2016, in any case, and one person is definitely a big part of it. That is, of course, Maryse. He was by her side on screen, and it did him a world of good. You could sense a Miz who had regained total confidence, who was comfortable, who was, let's say, back at his best level. And above all, this was characterized by an Intercontinental Championship reign at that time. I want to mention the shoot promo he did against Daniel Bryan. An extraordinary shoot promo with Daniel Bryan. It was amazing. All of this is to say that during that time, when we had a heel Intercontinental Champion with Maryse by his side, who was angry about being mistreated, it was pure gold. All of that was fantastic. And at that moment, I thought to myself that he had really come back and become someone important again. And he stayed for a little while. I remember, for example, that he was at the 25th anniversary of Bro in early 2018. He was in a rivalry with Roman Reigns at that time. Well, he had been for a short period, in any case. And frankly, at that time, he was still credible. I remember that he had a match against Rollins and Finn Balor at WrestleMania 34 for the Intercontinental title, but when did Ubis's career once again go off the rails? In any case, we know that it is also during this time that he becomes a father for the first time, where they are parents together with Maris, and that Maris is less present. Well, he did have a rivalry with Daniel Bryan in all of this, which was quite personal, based on the shared experiences between the two men. We remember that back in the day when Daniel Bryan was still just a rookie in NXT, they had some very memorable interactions with The Miz, who was great, by the way, really great. CM Punk used to clash with The Miz over his look and lack of charisma, which is all very interesting. This little rivalry between them is quite symbolic. We also remember that he had a match against Shane McMahon at WrestleMania 35, but I would particularly like to focus on the last 3 to 4 years of The Miz in WWE, because believe it or not, we might tend to forget it since it didn't last very long. But still, it is quite significant. He regained the WWE title in February 2021 after all. The Miz had become champion again. So it's true that he was taking advantage opportunistically, as he is. It's crazy to think that, in the end, he takes advantage of this, let's say, beatdown, this destruction of Drew McIntyre by Bobby Lashley to cash in his briefcase, knowing that originally he wasn't even the one who won the briefcase. We remember that at WrestleMania 36, unfortunately, the Money in the Bank matches no longer took place at WrestleMania, but at the designated pay-per-view, the designated PLE, Money in the Bank. We recall that Otis was Mr. Money in the Bank, but they had put the briefcase on the line, and that The Miz had won it. And so, he was able to cash in February 2021 and become champion again. And I remember that, seeing this as a fan, I would say, damn, The Miz who has the fire. The Miz who shuts up all those who criticize him once again, who is back on top. But in reality, it was mostly him who was, like, in 2011, by the way, 10 years earlier, a bit of a secondary character for a few weeks, in the real rivalry that was between Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley, which was being set up for WrestleMania 37, but still, he had been champion. And so, all of this took place at Elimination Chamber. So, we still have a Miz who is WWE Champion in February 2021. And what has he done? To summarize the following years. A few weeks later, he is at WrestleMania 37 indeed, but he has a tag team match. So, we can still say that in fact he was facing Bad Bunny. So yes, you heard it right, Bad Bunny. For those who are not aware, the singer had a stint in WWE and is a fan of wrestling. So Bad Bunny and Priest teamed up, where he was still part of one of the selling matches. Selling matches were supposed to be one of the attractions for WrestleMania 37. The fact mainly that there is a celebrity, and he had still been more or less good for. In reality, if we look a little between the lines to still make Bad Bunny comfortable and to add some interest to all of this, because we can criticize The Miz for some things, but on the other hand, he has always been excellent at being a detestable heel, also provoking Bad Bunny a bit. In any case, he still had a match with a celebrity, which is not just an insignificant match that serves no purpose, at WrestleMania 37 for the return of the audience. Then, what can be noted in the following years? In 2022, he still had some importance, as he had a tag team match. Once again, a tag team match, which is not as prestigious as a solo match. And this is somewhat symbolic. And he was teamed up with Logan Paul, who actually has a lot in common with The Miz. They both come from Cleveland, and above all, they both have that aspect where they are made to be arrogant and detestable, but also with a bit of an opportunistic weasel side. Isn't Logan Paul a bit like the modern day Miz? Especially since, well, Logan Paul comes from the YouTube universe, while The Miz comes more from the reality TV world. It's true that they have common points, being somewhat outsiders to the wrestling bubble originally. In any case, they had that tag team match, which would also lead, a few months later, to a one-on-one match at SummerSlam against Logan Paul. This was mainly a way to showcase him, so congratulations to The Miz for that. He always manages to hype up his opponents and put them in the spotlight. In this case, highlighting Logan Paul. Then, at WrestleMania 39 in 2023, can we really say it's bad because he doesn't have a real match? In any case, he had some, but they were filler matches meant to entertain the crowd. Once again. But in any case, One could say that some might find the role of host for WrestleMania 39 Hollywood to be both rewarding, because he was still. We saw him several times in the show. He still brought a bit of the show, even if it wasn't enough for my taste. It's true that the role of host, especially in recent years, frankly, doesn't mean much anymore. Ultimately, if we saw the host in backstage segments, at the beginning of the show, in the middle of the show, just having interactions here and there, a bit like The Rock did in 2011, by the way. What I prefer already, is that another one who has a real importance, while The Miz was mainly an excuse to have one or two entertaining segments, supposedly entertaining. But one could say, yes, it brings visibility, but at the same time, it's to entertain the audience. So, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, as you will have understood. And so, he has this role as host at WrestleMania 39. And what else? A few months later, he faces Gunther for the Intercontinental title at Survivor Series. For me, that was quite obvious during that whole time when that feud was happening. It was mainly a bit of a filler rivalry for the grand reign, the long reign of Gunther. But it's true that he still had legitimacy, since he is one of those who held the Intercontinental Championship the longest in WWE. So he had legitimacy to face Gunther for that specific title. That's true. Then, he finds himself, and it should be noted that it was also around this time that he started talking about those famous Rubibis, saying, even if it was also under the influence of Maris in reality, that he has massive balls, as he would say. Let's also mention, at the beginning of 2022, a couple's rivalry, him and Maris against Edge and Beth Phoenix. It seems far away today, but it happened. Well, it had been over several weeks, starting from rather late 2021, early 2022, let's say. And let's say it was me. In any case, what was funny is that I remember when Edge returned at that time, I was expecting anything. Except for a couple's rivalry, Edge and Beth Phoenix against The Miz and Maris, at that time, I really didn't expect it at all. It completely caught me off guard. In short, he has had here and there some moments, some fun things, some entertaining things, but what stands out the most, perhaps in recent years, is his victory at WrestleMania 40 in a team with R-Truth, where they became tag team champions and where they had a true WrestleMania moment, as they call them, and a real celebration in this latter tag team match. And it was good for him. It was good for him. Above all, I think it was more of a moment given to R-Truth than to The Miz, because The Miz has already headlined WrestleMania. But for R-Truth, it was somewhat the peak of his career at that moment. And so, it was surprising in 2024 to see The Miz and R-Truth doing tag team matches and having significance as a team. So it only lasted a few months, and that's mainly where, for me, a bit of my... Still, on this occasion, I have a rant. I have some negative things that I noticed about two instances involving The Miz. He certainly had that exposure, that visibility at WrestleMania 40 with R-Truth, but in reality, especially in singles competition, it literally... There were months and months where he did not have a single solo match in premium live events. He can really count them on one hand, by the way, the one-on-one matches he has had in PLE, because let's be honest, it's the matches in PLE that are the most important. It's all well and good to have solo matches, but the matches that really matter are the PLEs. And right now, it's the Gobi Desert, the Miz's career for quite some time. And this is a rant I have. I think that The Miz has been relegated, let's say, over time due to Triple H's booking, to a role that is really in the complete background. With still, this incredible remontada in 2024 to be tag team champion with R-Truth, but all of this while being a babyface, all of this being a tag team match, is worth what it's worth. It's still much less rewarding than a solo spotlight, obviously. And all of this makes me wonder, and you wonder too, what does the future hold for The Miz? Isn't he sinking? Then with sometimes some remontada here and there. Is he sinking into complete anonymity? On the other hand, one could say, yeah, but he has already survived and remained during times when he was also completely useless. He still stayed, so maybe all of this won't lead to him eventually getting fired or... Honestly, I would be really surprised if he got fired, considering his seniority. But then again, you never know. He actually had his own reality show, it's worth mentioning, as a, let's say, showman and entertainer. It has been quite lackluster in recent years, and especially, where is it leading? Personally, I think that's strength and courage to her, as his wife Maris has had health issues. And it's true that it seems, well, maybe we don't know. Anything is possible. Maybe they will end up being a duo. Again, as a couple, on screen, because I think that's where The Miz is generally at his best, and also on the island. But I wonder if, in WWE, under Triple H's booking, The Miz can really claim and hope for an important place. It's true that he doesn't really fit the profile, even if this victory at WrestleMania 40 proves somewhat the opposite, but it felt more like it was meant to provide a feel-good moment rather than really mean something in the long term. Even so, it should be noted that with R-Truth, they were the first holders of the new Tag Team Championship, which can still be a source of pride for them in a way. Anyway, I wonder where this leads The Miz in the coming years. Tell me what you think if you find that, honestly, if we take a step back and look at his career, what we can say is that, on one hand, he is an excellent heel, good with Maris, good with celebrities to make them comfortable and help them progress, excellent on the mic, full of great moments, on the mic, capable of being very entertaining, eloquent. But on the other hand, he can have long periods where he is not utilized, and there are also times when it may not be his fault. They might not want to use him, and perhaps consider that he is part of a generation that needs to pass the torch to the next one. Do you think that The Miz is more on one side or the other? What do you think? In any case, it's true that The Miz's situation can be divisive. It can spark conversation because it's so unstable, and it's been like a roller coaster for years sometimes. In any case, there has been so much good and very bad in his career that assessing it is complicated for The Miz. In any case, I invite you to do so. Moreover, I take this opportunity to thank everyone who participates in the channel, who comments, and who shares their opinions. I am always the happiest to read all of this, and then I sincerely thank you for that. Obviously, it keeps the channel alive. It's great. We share as fans of wrestling, so I thank you for that. Thank you all who like and comment from the bottom of my heart. And don't hesitate to do the same for The Miz. What do you think? Do you find that he is done for, in a way? That there really isn't anything new to say about The Miz? That he has gone through it all? That he has had a respectable career? He has accomplished things? He has won titles? He has headlined WrestleMania, which is no small feat. Even as a man and everything, he has an admirable evolution, and he has truly earned the right to pursue other projects, perhaps to focus more on, maybe on entertainment in all its forms. Let's not forget that he even danced on television at one point, which was quite courageous of him. Or you think, no, there are still things to do with The Miz. He is poorly booked. Or you think that no, his role suits him very well. Basically being a bit of a secondary background guy who can sometimes bring interest back to those who have lost it. Moreover, in September 2024, it seemed like, which served to rekindle interest in Karrion Kross, who was then completely lost in the main roster, at least in September 2024. Or, just as he did for R-Truth, he also somehow allowed, at least he was alongside R-Truth, to really highlight him and elevate him even more, so to speak. What do you think? In any case, I look forward to your comments and let me know what you think. I find all of this very, very interesting for The Miz. Is he awesome or not? It's up to you to say.
We can say that this topic raises a lot of questions. I hope you had a good time watching this video, and I invite you to stay in the paradise of wrestling to look at some other ones. See you right away.
And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold said so. What?